Maya Keller's phone battery had died 3 blocks ago, right after she'd taken what she thought was a shortcut through a neighborhood that looked nothing like the photos from her conference hotel. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across unfamiliar streets, and her presentation notes felt heavy in her messenger bag as she stood on a corner trying to make sense of where she'd ended up. Chicago was supposed to be a grid city, easy to navigate, but somehow she'd managed to get herself completely turned around after her morning session had run late, and she'd decided to grab lunch somewhere local instead of the hotel restaurant. A man stood near a streetlight, tall and broad-shouldered in dark jeans, and a gray Henley that looked worn in all the right ways. His dark hair was slightly messy, like he'd been running his hands through it, and there was something about the confident way he leaned against the pole that made him seem approachable despite his intimidating build. "Excuse me," Maya called out, walking toward him with what she hoped was a friendly smile. "I'm lost. Can you help?" Lucas Anderson looked up from his phone, and for a split second, something flickered across his face before settling into an easy, slightly confused expression. He pocketed his phone and straightened up. "Lost? Yeah, I can try. Where are you trying to go?" "The Pinnacle Hotel downtown," Maya said, tucking a strand of her brown hair behind her ear. "I thought I knew which way I was heading, but nothing looks familiar anymore." Lucas tilted his head, squinting as if he were trying to recall something distant. "Pinnacle Hotel, that sounds familiar. Is it near that big park?" Maya blinked. "Grant Park, I think so, yes, it's in the Loop." "The Loop," he repeated, nodding slowly like he was processing new information. Right. I think I know the general area. I'm actually headed that direction myself, kind of. I can walk with you if you want, figure it out together." She felt relief wash over her. "That would be amazing, thank you. I'm Maya, by the way, Lucas." He extended his hand, and his grip was firm and warm. "So what brings you to Chicago? You're definitely not from here." They started walking, and Maya noticed he seemed to be thinking carefully about which direction to turn at each corner. "How can you tell? You've got that look." "Not quite tourist, but not local either." He paused at an intersection, glancing both ways. "I think we want to go this way. Maybe you said downtown, right?" "Yes, downtown." Maya laughed despite her nervousness. "Are you sure you know where you're going? You don't sound very confident." Lucas grinned, and it transformed his entire face from serious to boyish. "I'm terrible with directions. I usually just wander until something looks familiar, but don't worry, I've got a decent sense of general direction. We'll get you there." "That's somewhat reassuring," she said, but she found herself smiling. There was something disarming about his honesty. "I'm here for a marketing conference, 3 days of seminars and networking events. This morning's session went over, and I wanted to grab real Chicago pizza, not hotel food, and now here I am." "Did you at least get good pizza?" "The best. Totally worth getting lost for." They walked several blocks, Lucas occasionally stopping to peer down cross streets as if he were searching for landmarks. He asked her about her work, and Maya found herself explaining her job as a senior marketing manager for a sustainable home goods company in Portland with more enthusiasm than she usually managed at networking events. There was something about the way Lucas listened, really listened, that made her want to keep talking. "So you convince people to buy bamboo toothbrushes," he said, but his tone was teasing, not mocking. "When you put it like that, it sounds ridiculous," Maya admitted. "But yes, essentially. And reusable bags and eco-friendly cleaning products and all sorts of things that are better for the planet. It's not ridiculous." Lucas stopped at another corner, looking genuinely thoughtful. "It matters. People need to care more about that stuff." He pointed down a street. "I think maybe we should head that way. Looks like it might lead somewhere more central." The neighborhood was gradually changing, becoming busier, and Maya felt a bit more confident they were heading in the right direction even if Lucas seemed to be navigating by instinct alone. "What about you?" "What do you do?" He hesitated for just a moment. "I work in real estate, property management mostly. It's not as interesting as saving the planet with bamboo." "I bet it's more interesting than you're making it sound," Maya said. They passed a small park and a group of kids was playing basketball on a court. Lucas seemed to relax as they walked, his shoulders less tense, his stride easy and unhurried. It has its moments. Lots of paperwork, lots of dealing with contractors and tenants, but I like it. I like seeing spaces transform, seeing buildings become homes or businesses. He glanced at her. How long are you in town? I leave Sunday morning, 2 more days. Do you have plans tomorrow night after your conference stuff? Maya's heart did a small skip. No, actually. I was probably just going to order room service and go over my notes. That sounds terrible, Lucas said. Let me take you somewhere, show you the real Chicago. Not that I'm an expert, obviously, since I can barely find my way around, but I know a few good spots. She studied his profile as they walked. There was something genuine about him, something that made her want to say yes even though this was completely unlike her. Maya didn't usually go out with strangers in cities she didn't know. But then again, she didn't usually get lost and meet handsome men who admitted to being directionally challenged. Okay, yes, that sounds nice. Lucas's whole face lit up. Yeah, great, give me your number and I'll text you details once we get your phone charged. They exchanged numbers, Lucas carefully typing hers into his phone, and Maya noticed his phone was a new model, expensive looking but with a simple black case. Nothing flashy. As they continued walking, the buildings grew taller, more recognizable. The street signs started matching the ones Maya remembered from her taxi ride yesterday. I think we're getting close, she said, spotting a familiar coffee chain on the corner. See, I told you I had a general sense of direction. Lucas looked pleased with himself, and Maya couldn't help but laugh. When they finally reached the Pinnacle Hotel, a gleaming high rise with its name emblazoned across the entrance, Maya felt oddly reluctant for their walk to end. Lucas stood with her in front of the revolving doors, hands in his pockets. Thank you for rescuing me, Maya said. I probably would have wandered for another hour. Anytime, I'm glad I was there. He rocked back on his heels slightly, and Maya realized he seemed almost nervous. So tomorrow. 7 o'clock, I'll meet you right here. 7 o'clock, she confirmed. Should I bring a compass in case you get us lost? Lucas laughed, the sound deep and genuine. Smart, but I promise I know exactly where I'm taking you. Maya watched him walk away, his tall frame disappearing into the flow of downtown pedestrians, and she felt a flutter of excitement she hadn't experienced in a long time. Inside the hotel lobby, she charged her phone at the business center, and within minutes, a text came through from an unknown number. This is Lucas. Glad we didn't end up in Milwaukee. See you tomorrow. She saved his contact and found herself grinning at her phone like a teenager. The next evening, Maya changed her outfit 3 times before settling on dark jeans, ankle boots, and a soft cream sweater that was nice without trying too hard. She'd spent the day in conference sessions barely absorbing information, her mind wandering to Lucas and his easy smile, the way he'd admitted to being lost right alongside her instead of pretending to have all the answers. He was waiting outside at 7 sharp, and he'd cleaned up nicely. Dark jeans again, but paired with a fitted navy button-down that made his eyes look almost impossibly blue. His hair was still slightly messy in that effortlessly attractive way. You found the hotel okay? Maya teased as she approached. It was touch and go for a while, but I managed. He offered his arm and she took it, feeling the solid muscle beneath the fabric. You look beautiful. Heat crept up her neck. Thank you, so where are you taking me? Patience. It's a surprise. They caught a taxi, Lucas giving the driver an address that Maya didn't catch, and they headed north. The conversation flowed as easily as it had the day before. Lucas asked about her conference, and Maya told him about the sessions she'd attended, the people she'd met. He seemed genuinely interested, asking questions that showed he was actually listening, not just waiting for his turn to talk. Do you travel a lot for work? He asked. A few times a year. Conferences, trade shows, occasional client meetings. I like it, but I always miss my apartment and my routine. Maya turned to look at him. What about you? Does property management keep you in Chicago? Mostly. Sometimes I have to travel to check on other properties, but I try to stay local. He looked out the window, then back at her. I grew up here, it's home. The taxi pulled up to a brownstone in a quieter neighborhood, and Maya looked around confused. This doesn't look like a restaurant. It's not. Lucas paid the driver and helped her out. It's a supper club, small, intimate, you need a reservation weeks in advance. The chef does a fixed menu each night, whatever's fresh and seasonal. Weeks in advance. How did you? I know a guy, Lucas said, which wasn't really an answer. But before Maya could press, he was leading her up the steps and through a door that opened into a warmly lit space that felt more like someone's elegant home than a restaurant. There were maybe 10 tables total, each with white linens and flickering candles. A woman in a crisp black dress greeted them immediately. "Mr. Anderson, wonderful to see you again. Your table is ready." They were led to a corner table, private and perfect, and Maya noticed a few other diners glancing their way. She settled into her chair and looked at Lucas with raised eyebrows. "You know a guy," he had the grace to look slightly sheepish. "I've been here a few times. The chef is incredible." The meal was extraordinary. 5 courses, each more delicious than the last, from a delicate butternut squash soup to perfectly seared scallops to a beef tenderloin that melted on Maya's tongue. Lucas knew about wine, suggesting a pairing that complemented each course, and he told stories about growing up in Chicago, about learning to navigate the L train system as a kid, about playing baseball in the summer leagues. "Did you always want to work in real estate?" Maya asked over dessert, a dark chocolate tart with raspberry coulis. Lucas paused, his fork halfway to his mouth. "Not exactly. I studied business in college, thought I might do something corporate, traditional, but I fell into real estate during an internship and found I actually cared about it. About creating spaces that matter to people." "That's really cool," Maya said. "Not everyone gets to do work they care about." "Do you care about your work?" She considered the question. "I do. Maybe not with the same passion I had when I first started, but I believe in what we're doing. Making sustainable choices accessible and appealing to regular people, not just the ultra-eco-conscious crowd. That feels important." Lucas nodded, his expression serious. "It is important. The world needs more people who think like that." When they left the supper club, Maya felt pleasantly full and slightly buzzed from the wine. The night air was cool, and Lucas offered her his jacket without her having to ask. It smelled like him, something clean and masculine that made her want to lean closer. "Want to walk for a bit?" he asked. "There's a park nearby, and the city lights are nice at night." They walked to a small park with a pond, the Chicago skyline glittering in the distance. A few other couples strolled along the paths, and Maya felt Lucas's hand brush against hers once, twice, before he finally just took it, lacing their fingers together. It felt natural, right, like they'd been doing this for years instead of hours. "I have a confession," Lucas said after a while. They'd found a bench overlooking the water and sat close together. Maya's stomach tightened. "What? I wasn't lost yesterday. I knew exactly where your hotel was." She pulled back slightly to look at him. "What? Why did you pretend you didn't?" Lucas rubbed the back of his neck, looking genuinely embarrassed. "You looked worried when you asked for help, and I could have just pointed you in the right direction, but I wanted to talk to you. I saw you standing there looking lost and beautiful and frustrated with yourself, and I just wanted more time. So I pretended I wasn't sure of the way so I could walk with you." Maya should have been annoyed, but instead she found herself fighting a smile. "You faked being directionally challenged." "Completely. I actually know this city like the back of my hand." He met her eyes. "I'm sorry if that's weird, I just didn't want to let you walk away." "It's a little weird," Maya admitted, "but also kind of sweet." She squeezed his hand. "I'm glad you did, even if it was slightly manipulative." "I promise that's my only deception," Lucas said. "Everything else has been completely honest." They talked for another hour on that bench about everything and nothing. Maya told him about her childhood in Portland, about her parents who still lived in the same house she grew up in, about her younger brother who was teaching English in South Korea. Lucas talked about his mother, who'd raised him mostly on her own and taught him to value hard work and integrity, about losing his father when he was young to a heart attack. When Lucas finally kissed her, it was soft and tentative at first, asking permission. Maya answered by threading her fingers through his hair and pulling him closer. The kiss deepened, and she felt it everywhere, warmth spreading through her chest, her stomach, all the way to her fingertips. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lucas rested his forehead against hers. "I really like you, Maya Keller." "I really like you too, Lucas Anderson." The next day was her last full day in Chicago, and Maya barely paid attention to the final conference sessions. Lucas texted her throughout the day, nothing important, just little observations and jokes that made her smile at her phone like an idiot. They made plans to spend the evening together, and Maya found herself wishing she'd booked her flight for Monday instead of Sunday morning. Lucas picked her up at 6, and this time he took her to Navy Pier, which he admitted was touristy but also undeniably fun. They rode the Ferris wheel, played arcade games, and shared loaded cheese fries while watching the sun set over Lake Michigan. It felt easy and comfortable, and also exhilarating in a way Maya hadn't experienced since she was much younger and still believed in the possibility of instant connection. "So I have to tell you something," Lucas said as they walked along the pier, his arm around her shoulders. "And I hope it doesn't change anything between us." Maya's heart sank. Here it comes, she thought, the girlfriend, the wife, the fatal flaw. "Okay, my last name, it's Anderson, Lucas Anderson." He paused. "Does that mean anything to you?" She frowned. "Should it?" Lucas let out a breath that sounded like relief. "Maybe not, but Anderson Properties. Anderson Real Estate Group, that's my company, not just where I work, I own it." Maya stopped walking, forcing him to stop too. "You own a real estate company?" "One of the largest private real estate companies in the Midwest," he said quietly. "I didn't lie about what I do. I do work in real estate and I do care about properties and creating spaces, but I undersold the scale of it, significantly." She processed this information. "Why?" "Because when I meet people and they know who I am or what I'm worth, it changes things. They treat me differently. They want something from me, or they're intimidated, or they're suddenly interested for all the wrong reasons." Lucas took both her hands in his. "When you asked me for help, you had no idea who I was. You just saw a guy on a street corner, and when we talked, you were yourself. Real and funny and smart and passionate about bamboo toothbrushes. I didn't want to lose that." Maya thought about the supper club, the way the hostess had greeted him, the expensive phone, the ease with which he'd navigated everything. "How rich are we talking? Does it matter? I don't know. Maybe." She pulled her hands away, needing space to think. "This is a lot, Lucas. I know. And I'm sorry I didn't tell you right away. But these past 2 days have been the best I've had in years, and it's because you see me as just Lucas. Not Lucas Anderson, CEO, not the guy whose company is worth billions, just me, billions." Maya's head spun. She'd been falling for a billionaire. She looked at him standing there, looking worried and vulnerable despite his size and his wealth and his power. And she realized that none of that mattered as much as the way he'd listened to her stories, the way he'd held her hand, the way he'd kissed her like she was precious. "Just so we're clear," Maya said slowly, "you're a billionaire who pretended not to know his own city just to spend more time with me." Lucas winced. "When you say it like that, it sounds crazy, sweet, completely insane." She stepped closer to him. "I should be mad at you, are you?" "I don't know yet. Ask me later." But she was smiling, and Lucas smiled back, hope lighting up his face. They spent the rest of the evening talking about what his life was really like. The companies he owned, the properties he managed, the constant demands on his time and attention. He told her about the pressure, the expectations, the loneliness of being at the top. Maya listened and shared her own vulnerabilities, her fear that she'd peaked too early in her career, her worry that she'd never find someone who really understood her. "I understand you," Lucas said as they sat on a bench overlooking the lake, the pier lights twinkling behind them. "Or I want to. I know we've only known each other 2 days, but I feel more connected to you than I have to anyone in years." I feel it too, Maya whispered. But I live in Portland. You live here, I have a job I love, a life I've built. I know, he pulled her against his side. We'll figure it out if you want to. Do you want to? Maya thought about her flight in the morning, about returning to her apartment and her routine and her life that had felt full enough before Lucas Anderson had pretended not to know his own city. She thought about the possibility of letting this connection slip away, of wondering what might have been, and she knew her answer. Yes, I want to figure it out. They kissed again, slower this time, savoring it, and Maya felt something settle in her chest. This was just the beginning, complicated and uncertain, but also full of promise. Lucas insisted on taking her to the airport the next morning, arriving at her hotel at 5 in the morning looking unfairly good despite the early hour. He'd brought her coffee exactly how she liked it, which she'd mentioned once in passing, and he carried her bag to his car, which turned out to be a sleek black SUV that probably cost more than her annual salary. At the airport, he walked her as far as security would allow, and they stood there awkwardly, neither wanting to say goodbye. I'll call you tonight, Lucas promised. And I'll come to Portland next weekend if you're free. I want to see your world, meet your friends, eat at your favorite restaurants. You'd really do that, fly to Portland just to see me. Maya, I have my own plane, and even if I didn't, yes, I would absolutely do that. He cupped her face in his hands. These 2 days have meant everything to me. To me too, she said, and then she was crying, which was embarrassing, but Lucas just wiped her tears away with his thumbs and kissed her forehead. This isn't goodbye, it's just see you soon. On the plane, Maya stared out the window and wondered if she'd just dreamed the entire weekend. But her phone buzzed with a text from Lucas before they'd even taken off. Missing you already. Can't wait for next weekend. The next few weeks were a blur of phone calls and text messages and video chats that lasted until 2 in the morning. Lucas flew to Portland the following weekend, and Maya showed him her favorite bookstore, her favorite coffee shop, the hiking trails she loved in Forest Park. He met her best friend Sarah, who pulled Maya aside and whispered, "He's gorgeous and he looks at you like you hung the moon. Don't screw this up." Lucas was charming and genuine with her friends, asking questions and remembering details, and he seemed to genuinely enjoy the cozy, laid-back vibe of Portland. They spent the weekend tangled up in each other, talking and laughing and learning each other's bodies with the kind of attention and care that Maya had only read about in books. When he left, Maya's apartment felt emptier than it ever had before. 2 weeks later, Maya flew to Chicago for a long weekend. Lucas picked her up in his regular SUV, not a limo or anything ostentatious, and he took her to his place, a stunning penthouse in one of the buildings he owned downtown. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, and the space was decorated in warm, masculine tones that somehow still felt inviting. "This is incredible," Maya breathed, walking to the windows to take in the view. "It's home," Lucas said, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "But it feels better with you in it." That weekend, Lucas introduced her to his mother, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia who ran a nonprofit for underprivileged youth and clearly wasn't impressed by wealth or status. She grilled Maya over lunch about her intentions, her career, her family, and Maya answered honestly, meeting Patricia's gaze steadily. By the end of the meal, Patricia was smiling. "I like her," she told Lucas as they were leaving. "She's real, don't let this one go." "I don't plan to," Lucas said, squeezing Maya's hand. The months that followed were challenging. The distance was hard, the time zones annoying when Lucas had to travel for business. They fought once badly when Lucas suggested Maya could just move to Chicago and find a job there, as if her career was something easily transferred. She'd yelled at him about assumptions and privilege, and he'd apologized profusely, admitting he'd been an idiot. They learned each other's rhythms, each other's boundaries, the ways to communicate across the miles. Lucas flew to Portland twice a month without fail, working remotely when he could. Maya went to Chicago as often as her job allowed. They talked about the future in careful terms, neither wanting to push too hard but both knowing this couldn't be sustained forever. 6 months after they'd met, Lucas surprised Maya by showing up at her office on a Tuesday afternoon. She was in the middle of a meeting when her assistant knocked on the conference room door looking flustered. "Maya, there's someone here to see you. He says it's urgent." Maya excused herself, worried something was wrong, and found Lucas in the lobby holding a ridiculous bouquet of flowers and looking nervous. "What are you doing here? Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine. Better than fine. Come with me." He took her hand and led her outside to where his SUV was waiting. "Get in, Lucas, I'm working. I can't just leave." "I cleared it with your boss. You're taking the rest of the day off." Maya gaped at him. "You called my boss." "I may have made a very generous donation to your company's sustainability initiative. Just get in the car, please. Trust me." Still bewildered, Maya climbed into the SUV. Lucas drove them out of the city, heading west toward the coast. He wouldn't answer any of her questions, just kept smiling mysteriously and telling her to be patient. They ended up at a beautiful house perched on a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean. It was modern but warm, with huge windows that captured the view, and Maya could see a path leading down to a private stretch of beach. "What is this?" she asked as Lucas helped her out of the car. "It's ours, if you want it." He led her up to the front door. "I bought it last month. I've been having it furnished and set up. It's right between Portland and the ocean, which I know you love. I can work from anywhere, Maya. My company is established enough that I have people I trust running the day-to-day operations. I don't need to be in Chicago all the time." Maya felt her eyes filling with tears. "You bought a house in Oregon." "I bought us a house in Oregon. I'm moving here to be with you because I love you and I don't want to spend another night in a different city from you." Lucas took both her hands. "I know we haven't talked about living together yet, and this might be too much too fast, but I can't do the distance anymore. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to come home to you every night. I want to build a life with you here in the place you love. You love me." Maya whispered. "So much it terrifies me. I've loved you since you asked me for directions and I lied through my teeth just to keep talking to you." He smiled, that boyish grin she'd fallen for on a Chicago street corner. "So what do you say? Want to live with a billionaire who's geographically challenged and completely crazy about you?" Maya laughed through her tears. "I love you too, so much, and yes, I want to live with you." Lucas kissed her right there on the doorstep of their new home, and Maya felt like her heart might burst from happiness. He showed her through the house, pointing out details he'd chosen because he thought she'd like them. The reading nook with perfect natural light, the chef's kitchen, the master bedroom with its view of the ocean. "I was thinking," Lucas said as they stood on the deck watching the waves, "that we could split our time. Stay here most of the time but keep the penthouse in Chicago for when we need to visit. My mom would never forgive me if I abandoned her completely." "That sounds perfect," Maya said. "Though she might like me better than you at this point. She definitely does." They moved in together a month later, and Maya couldn't believe how seamlessly their lives fit together. Lucas set up a home office and took meetings remotely, flying to Chicago once or twice a month for the things that needed his physical presence. Maya kept her job and her routine, but now she came home to Lucas cooking dinner, to his terrible jokes and his strong arms, and the way he listened to her day with genuine interest. A year after they'd met, Lucas took Maya back to Chicago for the anniversary of the day they'd first encountered each other. He walked her to the exact street corner where she'd asked him for help, and Maya laughed at the ridiculousness of it. "This is so cheesy," she said. "I know. But it's our place, where everything started." Lucas got down on one knee right there on the sidewalk, and Maya's breath caught in her throat. "Maya Keller, you asked me for help and I helped myself to your heart instead. Will you marry me?" "That's a terrible line," Maya said, but she was crying and nodding. "Yes, absolutely yes." The ring was perfect, a simple solitaire that caught the light, and Lucas slid it onto her finger with shaking hands. People on the street applauded, and Lucas stood up and kissed her, spinning her around until she was dizzy and laughing. They got married 6 months later in a ceremony overlooking the ocean at their house, with close friends and family in attendance. Patricia cried openly, and Maya's parents couldn't stop smiling. Lucas's vows made everyone weep, promising to always get lost with her, to always find their way home together, to love her with everything he had for the rest of his life. Maya promised to always ask for his help, even when she didn't really need it, to build a life with him that was full of love and laughter and sustainable bamboo products. Everyone laughed, and Lucas grinned at her with so much love in his eyes that Maya felt like the luckiest woman alive. 2 years later, they welcomed a daughter, Emily Rose, who had Lucas's blue eyes and Maya's stubborn determination. Lucas was an incredible father, patient and playful, and watching him with their daughter made Maya fall even more deeply in love with him. They split their time between Oregon and Chicago, wanting Emily to know both places, both sides of her heritage. Lucas scaled back his work even more, focusing on the projects that mattered most to him and delegating everything else. He started a foundation with Maya focused on sustainable urban development, combining their passions into something meaningful. They worked together, building something that would outlast them, and Maya couldn't imagine a better partner in life or work. On the 3rd anniversary of the day they'd met, Maya and Lucas stood on that same street corner in Chicago. Emily balanced on Lucas's hip, and they laughed about how far they'd come from that moment when Maya had been lost, and Lucas had pretended to be equally confused. "Best decision I ever made," Lucas said, kissing Maya's temple, "pretending not to know my own city." "Best decision I ever made was asking a suspicious stranger for help," Maya countered. Emily tugged on Lucas's shirt. "Daddy, I'm hungry, see." "She's already getting lost and needing to be rescued, just like her mother," Lucas teased. Maya swatted his arm playfully. "She's 2, and she's not lost, she's hungry, there's a difference." They walked to a nearby restaurant, Lucas carrying Emily, Maya's hand in his free one, and she thought about how much her life had changed from that day when she'd stood alone and confused on an unfamiliar street. She'd been looking for her hotel, but she'd found something infinitely better. She'd found home in a person, in a family, in a love that had started with a simple question and a small deception, and had grown into something more real and true than anything she'd ever imagined. Sometimes getting lost was exactly what you needed to find your way. And sometimes, the best help came from someone who was willing to walk the journey with you, even if they already knew the destination. Maya squeezed Lucas's hand, and he looked down at her with that smile that still made her heart skip, and she knew that no matter where life took them, they'd never really be lost again. They'd found each other, and that was all the direction they'd ever need.